Welcome to Bash History Manipulation. Now, one thing you really want to understand on a Linux machine is the history file. Now, there are a bunch of different shell types with Linux. Those are the basic shell you're using when you're interacting with command line. It could be a bash shell, Z shell. There are so many different options there, but 9 times out of 10, that shell actually saves most of the commands you're typing to a specific history file. Now, if you're performing a red team engagement, that should immediately set off 2 different things in your head. A, anything you're typing is being saved and a defender can potentially gain access to that. And B, maybe you can go enumerate those files and understand a little bit more about what those administrators are doing on that machine, or even potentially get any sensitive information, passwords, or configuration files that could be being executed or run through command line. And this section is all about unsetting your hist file, deleting the hist file, and just basically manipulating that history file. Now, the RTFM covers a zillion different ways to zero out your history file. I just want to talk through the majority of them, and then we'll just pick one of them to actually run against our virtual machine. So first up is this auth-log file. I actually do not have this auth-log file on the specific virtual machine. You're going to find different flavors of Linux, and there are so many of them. All have their own log files and other things, so I am sure var log auth log is probably for a very specific version of Linux that I don't have virtualized. But the first one here, hopefully you all know what the echo command is. Let me type it in here, echo test. Whatever you type into echo actually gets echoed back. But if you type in echo right here, what this is gonna do is it's gonna overwrite this file right here. And this is actually the default location for the bash history file on a Linux machine. Again, remember, it could be a bunch of different history names. This is the bash history we're talking about here, but Z shell, like all those other shells, may have their own history files. Or you could just straight RM the history file here. We are passing a recursive force function. Probably don't need the recursive argument in this specific circumstance, but the force definitely doesn't hurt. History taxi is actually going to call the history binary and then try to clear it that way. These next 3 are useful as well if you actually want to set the size of the history file to extremely small, or basically in this instance 0, right? You want to make sure it never gets written to. Unset hist file will actually unset the hist file and ensure that bash history file does not get written to. And then this one's kind of random, but also pretty cool. This one will disconnect the current session and kind of force kill all that process as you should get logged out. Let's try this against our code user callback right here. Yep, logged us out, forcibly killed everything. And then the last one right here, lnsf dev null bash history. What this is gonna do is it's gonna add a symlink for the bash history file to dev null. So anything trying to be written to that file is actually going to go to dev null. Something like that you do need to be careful of. That's a more permanent change. So any user logging in after you with that same user account, that would persist. Now let's go ahead, let's just pick one. I want to try this echo bash history. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to cat bash history. That's our bash history file for our rogue operator user. I'm gonna run this and we'll see if it wipes it. Okay, ran it, we'll up arrow. Awesome, all zeroed out, right? Be careful wiping out an entire history file. If you do get on the machine, the first thing you wanna do is that unset hist file. That will ensure the hist file is not being written to. That way you can go on, do your enumeration, everything else, and then we'll see. Well, that's a wrap on bash history manipulation. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.